So here's my Ducati 797 Plus. This is a 2018. It's still, I think I only rode it like a few times since I got it. But anyways, it's still pretty new. I think it has less than 1,000 miles on it. But it's 18 and right now it's 22, so it's what, 4 years. I don't think this thing's ever had the brake fluid replaced. So I usually, on my bikes, I usually change the brake fluids during the springtime. So now it's already beginning of summer, so it's a good time for it. It's usually after the rainy season is when I change it. So that way, it's dry. You don't have to worry about brake fluid absorbing water, but also beginning of summer, when you ride summertime, it's hotter. You're riding, so everything gets hotter, less brake fluid, less chance of boil over and such, less chance of your brake fluid expanding. So that's why I do it during that time. I believe Ducati, let's see, I don't think you guys can see this on here, but it says .4 brake fluid right here, .4. I think also up here, it says right here .4. So .4 brake fluid. So that's what I have. I have .4 brake fluid right here. I usually use .4 anyways, even if it's sometimes they say .5.1, but sometimes if it has that, I still use .4 because .4 is just a lot cheaper, and I could get it in this big 32 ounce at Walmart for like a lot cheaper than .5. .5 you have to go to get it at a specialties shop, and you only get half of this amount for .5.1, and it costs like twice as much as this one does. So basically it costs 4 times more because this is double the amount and half the price. So I'm not racing or anything like that, so I don't give a shit about going up to 5.1. It doesn't really make that much of a difference for street use. So anyways, so I have both the reservoir covered in an old t-shirt, so just in case if I spill anything, this will absorb and doesn't get onto the paint, because brake fluid is corrosive and it will eat away paint. Same thing down here. I'm not expecting the bottom to leak at all. Usually where the bolt here is, the bleeder bolt, the shape of it where it connects on the bottom, it's like a cone shape. So usually when you loosen this up, there's always going to be a little bit of fluid seeping from right here. That's pretty normal. But if you turn it, when you loosen this up, you only turn, let's say, about an eighth of an inch, or not an eighth of an inch, eighth of a turn or so. That should minimize the leakage from here, so most of the fluid will go out the line, to catch it. Let's see, what else? I think that's it. So how you do this? This thing obviously has ABS. So you won't be able to get all the fluid out, because obviously there's going to be fluid in the ABS pump. So when the fluid that's in the pump, you can't get out unless you have their service tool that plugs into the bike and opens up the pump. But obviously I don't have that, so I'm just going to do it this way. This will get most of the fluid out, and I'm not too concerned about the pump itself. Once you do this a lot, especially if you do this every year, and as you use it, when the pump does activate, the fluid in the pump will mix with the newer fluid here, and it dilutes out the older fluid in the pump, and it'll be fine. Again, this is you're not racing, so you don't have to worry about too much on that. So let's get started. What I'm gonna do is, obviously you need to loosen up here, but before you do that, you should press down on the brake lever, right? Push down on the brake lever and keep the pressure down on it while you loosen up the bolt, or the nut here, the bleeder here. Fluid will come out. As soon as right before the fluid actually stops coming out, tighten this back up. Don't wait until it stops, then tighten it up. Usually when you wait till it stops and you tighten it up, that's a chance for air potentially to get in this spot right here. So as it's still moving and it's barely just about to stop, tighten this back up, that's when you could release the brake lever. Then once you release that, and this is already tightened up, this is tightened up, you release this, that you pump this a few times. The first time you pump it, it will be soft. It will just bottom out. So you have to pump it like at least 2 times, if not 3 or more times. Then once it firms up again, and you repeat the same thing again. You hold it down, loosen this up, and you just repeat that until your fluid in the reservoir goes down. I usually go down until just before it reaches the hose. Then I will fill the new fluid up. Then I will repeat this process. I will keep on doing that until I've gone through pouring new fluid through this at least 3 times. So that should be enough fluid to new fluid in the lines going all the way to the ABS pump. I have no idea where the ABS pump on this back is. I'm guessing it's up underneath the seat somewhere, or maybe underneath the gas tank somewhere. So that's my guess. I actually see the brake line coming up underneath the seat right here. So it's either underneath the seat somewhere or underneath the fuel tank somewhere up here. So it has a long ways to go. That's why I do it at least a minimum of 3 times here. So it flows all the way through and back down out the caliper. Okay. So anyway, so that's how I do it. And if the fluid is really old, you would notice that the color on the fluid gets darker. So when the first time you pump out the first amount, you just pay attention to the fluid itself. It's darker. Then as you pump, as you fill it through and pump it through and flush it through, bleed it through, as the new fluid gets here, it will get lighter. And that's your indicator. Okay, I pretty much have new fluid in there. That's when you could stop. Okay, that's your cue right there. It's kind of hard to see with this hose because it's all yellowed out, but because this thing's I don't think this thing's ever been changed. So it's been 4 years old, so it's darker than it is when it's new. Because when it's new, it's not clear, but it still has a little bit of a color to it, but it's a lot clearer than it is in here, I think. Actually, this one's not too dark either. Sometimes old fluid, especially in cars, because people never bleed the brake fluid in the cars, and I've seen cars that's been driven around for like 10 years and they never had their brakes bled out. They've only get the brake bled out after once they need to change their brake pads. That's when they get the brakes bled out. So that could be easily 10 plus years. And those brake fluid, man, it's almost black almost. It looks almost like motor oil because it's so dirty, it's so old. And when you have that, as you bleed it through, it's very obvious. You can see that change right away. But with this, it's not too bad. So I might not, or you guys on camera might not notice the difference, but I will certainly could tell. And it's a very it's a small difference. It's not huge. So I'm gonna angle it so that way you guys can see both my hands. I think that's good right there. So let's start. All right, I had to pump it through like half a dozen times, just because I think the length was so long and the reservoir here is so small that it only took like a couple pumps for this reservoir to empty out, and that wasn't enough to run the length of the brake line. So better to be safe than sorry. So I went, I filled it up like literally like half a dozen times. So let's disconnect everything. So you saw, so this is the banjo here is now, not the banjo, the bleeder here is now closed. So let's do this. So basically, my what is it called? The catch can over here is down at the bottom. So when I lift this off, the gravity should just suck the brake line fluid through. Actually, let's put this here just in case, because sometimes it does kind of spill out a little bit. But if you do this fast, it should be all right. Oh man, this thing is shit. Oh, god damn it! So I did spill some in it, and the towel caught it. That nipple there, it was a little bit bigger than normal. I think that's because this is a different bike. Usually doing this on Hondas. Hondas, the nipple is a little bit smaller. So I don't see nothing wet here. There's nothing wet here except for the nipple. There's nothing wet, so that's good. Keep oh, allergies. Keep everything clean. So we should be good there. And there's probably a little bit of brake fluid down in this nipple here. Lots of times what I would do is I would actually get a garden hose and just, kind of blast into this nipple here. Blast into the nipple hole so that way it gets the brake fluid out. Because again, brake fluid is corrosive. But this time I might not do it. I'm just gonna basically stick this in here, and hopefully the terry cloth towel here, little, because it has a little strings on it, right? Little fibers. Hopefully I can stick a few in there and let it wick up whatever brake fluid's in there and call that good. So that's done with that. Now on the reservoir side, I wiped down the thread on the reservoir. Now we need to put the cap back on, but the cap is gonna be dirty and wet. So to that, let's look at the cap here. So here's the gasket. Whoa, it's all dripping fluid. That's that. So this side is the fluid side, and this side is the dry side. But you see on the dry side, you still see moisture. That's what it is. Actually, that's actually moisture. Again, because brake fluid absorbs water. It likes water. I can't remember what the name was. That it's called hydroscopic. I think it's called. So over time, it will it wants to absorb water. Basically, I'm just gonna wipe down both sides. So this thing is like an accordion. So it expands. So I'm gonna push from the dry side or the non-brake fluid side. Wipe off the brake fluid side. Okay. And we want to do this with a clean rag. Down the brake fluid side, excuse me, the non-brake fluid side. It's all wet with water, so I just wipe my hands so it's dry. Let's see, let's push it back in here. See, it's all wet with water, because that's just the nature of it, the nature of brake fluid. Brake fluid likes to absorb water. That's the reason why you have to bleed the brakes every, on a motorcycle. I think motorcycle manufacturers recommend 2 years, but I do it 1 year just because I like, I think it does make a difference, because I could actually feel the difference. After I bleed the brakes every year, and I, before I ride it, ride it before and ride it after, and you could feel a difference. You can notice your brakes is gonna feel a little better. It feels a little bit more responsive, a little bit firmer. So that's the reason why I do it every year, because it does make a difference. And that difference there is that's not just the brake fluid, getting dirty and such, but it's also absorbing water as well. Even though this gasket here is, it's supposed to be sealed, but it's not. That's the thing with seals, is that they're never really 100% sealed. There's always a little bit of something that gets through. So, and water, as you know, water will always get through no matter what. Water's in the air. It's absorbed in the air, and it gets to anything. It doesn't matter how well sealed something is. It's always going to get through. The only time it doesn't is if something is pressurized. Then whatever's pressurized, it wants to push out. So this is the brake fluid side, and that's the non-brake fluid side. There's a cap that goes on, like so. earlier I leveled out the bike, make sure that it was at the max. So I had it just slightly below the max, maybe like 2 millimeters below the max level. Lots of times when you do it at the max level, it tends to be a little bit too much, and it causes the when you put this on, it actually causes it to kind of overflow and spill out a little bit. So I'm gonna do it at an angle, so that way, hopefully I don't trap too much air in it. Okay, it's in. And for the cap, I need to wipe the cap down. The cap in here is wet with probably with water, most likely. Again, because brake fluid likes to absorb water. Okay, it's cleaned up. Wipe down. If you notice the color here versus, before I fed it, it was darker. Now it's lighter. Okay, that's it. All right, so that's it. So that was a clean brake bleed, so I don't have to do nothing. Sometimes when you have brake fluid spilling out here, what you do is just hose it down. Just get a garden hose, and hose. Once you finish everything, hose everything down, so that way the water will flush and clean off the brake fluid. Otherwise, if you leave the brake fluid there and not flush it off, not rinse it off, it will start eating the paint. So that's how you change or bleed the brakes.